So last time we met, we were taking a look at an Angular application, right, that was able to connect to a Java server and download a list of courses, right, and it displayed them. So let's take a look at where we were on that. Let's open recent, and I believe it was this one, webdev Angular. So let's open that up. And on the server side, here, sorry, let's go to that project. So what was it? Webdev Angular. There we go. Let's run that. It was npm start. So that starts it up. It doesn't serve immediately. It doesn't open up the browser, right? We need to know that it's being hosted at 4200. There is a local host 4200. So let's hit the browser there. So this is localhost 4200. And there's right. We had built like a browser that allowed us to browse through courses and modules and lessons and whatnot. Okay, all right. So let's table this for a minute. One of the things that we need to learn how to do is that the application will have multiple pages, not just this one page, right? We need to be able to find out how is it that we can navigate from this browser, this course browser, right, and maybe a login page and a profile page and a registration page and an admin page. You need to be able to navigate, right? So let's take a look at that. Now, navigation in a single-page application is referred to as routing, right? Meaning there will be a URL, and based on that URL, I want to be able to show one content or another content. Okay? In a non-single-page application, that's trivial, right? We use just a link. We use a hyperlink, and that hyperlink points to the next page we want to go to. Okay? But we abandoned that early on, right? We did that when we played around with jQuery. Correct? We abandoned that when we introduced React. And in React, we use the router. Remember, we use the browser router, right? That allowed us to create links, create routes, right? And we created a router, and the links allowed us to navigate to different components. Yes? Well, here is something similar. We need to do something similar here. Okay, we're not going to navigate away from the index page. We're always going to stay in this one single index page. That's why they call them single-page applications. But we still want to be able to navigate one way or another. Okay, where this navigator, this course navigator, is just one of many pages. Right, it's one of many pages. Okay, so let's see how we can handle this. Let's go back and see how we implemented this. All right, so we had created this whiteboard component, right? And this whiteboard component had this course service client, and it was showing the list of courses and whatnot, right? And it also had the HTML that allowed us to navigate through the courses and the modules. Okay, so what we'd like to be able to do perhaps is we don't want only this content. Maybe this should be its own component. Yes? And we could perhaps navigate here when we want to navigate through the courses. And then if we click on another link, we'll go and register. If we click another link, we'll go into login. If we click another link, we'll go into profile. If we click on courses, maybe we want to see this. All right? So how do we do that? How do we do that? All right, so let's move this. Let's move this content elsewhere. Let's create an additional component, and we'll call it perhaps the course navigator component or something, right? Let's do that. And we'll need another tab. Are we in the right place? Yes. So let's create another component. ng generate component course navigator. So again, it's going to create 4 artifacts, right? And there it is. There's our course navigator. And what we want to do is move this entire content. The entire content we're just going to cut from here, right? And we're going to move it into the HTML of the other course navigator. Okay? All right. What about the logic? The logic is here, right? The logic is right here. So we'll need the same constructor. All right, so I'm just going to copy this whole thing, and I'm going to copy it into the component. There it is. All right, and it's asking me if I want to, I think it's, nope, that's not it. Was it? What is the keystroke that brings it in? Client. There we go. All right, there it is. So we moved the HTML and we moved the TypeScript over to this other component. Now our component here really doesn't do anything, right? It's not going to have any courses. It doesn't really need this service. It doesn't really need these event handlers anymore. And the ng init is really empty. It's not really doing anything. Right, so our component, our whiteboard component, is really empty right now. Right? It's not showing anything. If we go back here, notice that it doesn't have that anymore. So how can we bring it back? How can we bring it back? Well, we could in the HTML in the component, you'll notice, right, in this brand new component we just created, notice that we're declaring the tag name that we can use. See that? So we could do that, right? We can use this tag name to bring them back in the whiteboard component. We can say bring back and say there it is. It's this one. Right, now we're including that component we just created into here, and notice that it's exactly what we had before. Yes? Right, it's kind of the same idea that we introduced in React, right? We encapsulate things in components, and then components contain other components and contain other components, and so on and so forth, right? So you could do exactly the same thing here in Angular, right? But we still haven't captured the issue. We haven't solved the issue that we don't just want to have this content, right? We want to have multiple contents. We want to be able to navigate from multiple. So how do we do that? All right. So here's to do that, we need to declare what the routings are, right? Very much like we did in React, right? We declared routes, right? And we said, hey, if you see this URL pattern, I want to show this component. If you see this URL pattern, I want to show this other component. Remember that? Right? Same thing here, right? But the syntax is different. The mechanisms are slightly different. Okay. So the way we're going to do it in Angular, we're going to declare a separate file that is exclusively going to deal with routings. Okay. We're going to call it. You can call it whatever you want, but we're going to call it app.routing.typescript. Okay. So let's declare that. We'll declare it here at the app, at the root of the app. So it's a TypeScript file. There it is. Okay, it's empty. And in there, we're going to have to bring in a couple things. We'll need to bring in the libraries that deal with routing, right? Very much like in React, we have browser route, right? We had route, link, router, right? Remember that? Same thing here. We have a router module and the routes, okay, from this Angular router. And then we declare a constant where we declare what are the mappings, right? What are the URL mappings, right? If you see this URL, I want this component to show. If you see this other URL, I want this other component to show. Right? In this particular case, let's create one that says courses will show the one we just created, right? I think it was Course Navigator, wasn't it? Course Navigator. There it is. Okay. If you see courses in the URL, I want to show that component. Okay. I think we're done there. And finally, we're going to export it. We're going to export it. We first use the router module and declare, right? We parse this JSON object, this JSON array, and create the routes for us, right? And the way we do that is through the router module.forRoute, and we give it the routes, the array. Okay? All right? Excellent. We're done. Actually, no, one more thing. We need to that routing file we just declared. We need to import it in our module configuration, right? In our module configuration. So let's do that. Here in our configuration module, this is our configuration module. We need to import this file we just created, right? It's a app. Was it a route? What's it called? Yeah, this one right here. We'll do it automatically. Routing? No. Let's import it. There it is. And we're just going to declare it right here. Routing. Okay? Everybody good? All right, I think we're done. We can go back and now if we type if we say oh no, I forgot to do one more thing. We need to tell it. We need to tell it where does the content, as the component is being loaded, right? Where do we want to inject it? Right? In React, we would do that how? We would declare the route tag, right? We use the route tag and say, here's where I want the component to render. Right? You could have other things above it and below it, right? But you would say, hey, if the route maps this URL, this is where I want it to render. Okay? So here, where we want things to render is at this HTML here. Instead of this being only the course navigator, I want lots of things to render there. Right? It could be the login page, it could be the home page, it could be the course navigator, but it could be lots of different things. So the way we declare that this is where we want the content to be injected, right, is by declaring a route. Where to go? A router outlet. A router outlet. Router outlet is the equivalent to a route in React. Right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to remove that, paste that, and there's our router outlet. Here's where we want the content to be injected, based on the URLs. What gets injected there? Well, it depends what the route is. Okay? In this case, right now, slash doesn't map to anything. Right? So localhost 4200 slash doesn't map to anything, so there's nothing being injected in there. It says, I don't have anything that maps there. But I know there's one that says courses, right? That is that component, that navigation component, right? It sees it, it says, let me go look my list of routes. Oh, you want this component to be injected, and it injects it where we told it to inject it. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right. Now we can perhaps add here hyperlinks, right? We can maybe add a hyperlink here and say, what's the name? We can use href and hardcode slash courses, course navigator. Right. So if we remove this, right, we still have the link, and this just adds slash courses to it. Okay. But instead of href, typically what we use instead is a router link. Router link. Okay, router link. Router link. And you can say, what was it? Courses, was it? Courses. Right, it behaves exactly the same. It renders. But what router link allows you to do is that instead of using low-level URLs, okay, it allows you to name them and give them an abstract name. Okay, a name that might make sense logically, but it might map to some fairly complex URL pattern. Okay, it allows you to decouple those two ideas, right? Where you have a complex URL that the file might live somewhere else, right? But then give it an abstract name. Okay, everybody good? All right, so now that we have navigation, we can start playing around perhaps with other links. Maybe I want to go to a login page or the registration page or the profile page, right? So let's take a look at that next.